Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
Hi, Pat O'Toole here, news correspondent with the Irish Farmers Journal, and you're very welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast. This week, my colleague Amy Ford talked to the Director of Teagasc, Jerry Boyle, about the current shortage of labour in dairy farming and the potential difficulties that's causing.
Jerry Boyle, Teagasc Director. Jerry, you've mentioned that the 2016 National Farm Survey shows that we might see a shortage in dairy farm labourers. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, well, if you look at where the change in deliveries came from, about half on the larger farms certainly came from more cows. And some farmers have substantially increased their cow numbers. And they are facing, this spring in particular, they have faced very, very difficult labour situation. Labour just hasn't been available to them. And we're hearing that from our advisors, we're hearing that from anyone involved in the business will tell you that. And it's probably fair to say we didn't fully anticipate it. I think the industry generally didn't really anticipate the nature of the requirement. And of course in dairy farms in spring systems it's highly concentrated around the calving period. And that makes it more difficult to get labour, because if someone is going to be only working for a couple of months at best, it's not a very attractive proposition. So, I mean, I think we do need a national initiative now to address the labour issue, and it is two central components. One is, where are we going to get the additional labour from? We'll have to seek foreign labour in a lot of situations. There may be also opportunities for surplus labour, say, in other enterprises. But you can see there a lot of farmers may not want to be employees for other farms. There'll have to be a different system, I think, looked at. And then second, we're going to have to train that labour. Now, certainly we in Teagasc are prepared, and we are developing programmes, short, intensive courses to train labour, including managers, and we're looking at bringing forward emergency-type transition courses that would qualify people on a more rapid basis than the normal sort of process. We can do that, but as far as the actual additional labour is concerned, that's probably the bigger challenge. Where are we going to get those extra workers? And as I said, I think it came as a bit of a shock to a lot of farmers this year. There was a big difference in handling 60, 70 cows and handling 100 cows in, you know.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
Phelim O'Neill was in Brussels this week and spoke with Princeton University professor Timothy Searchinger on the benefits or non-benefits of using forest or trees as a fuel or energy source. The professor also seriously questions the carbon benefit of growing forests and producing wood pellets in the USA and shipping to the EU to burn in burners. Phelim also talked with Irish MEP Luke Ming-Flanagan on his trip to Brussels.
Professor Searchinger from Princeton University, you've been to the European Parliament today. You've presented to a group your thinking on the use of harvesting woodland and its impact on the environment and carbon production. Can you summarise that very briefly for us in 2 or 3 sentences?
Well, like all things, growing things efficiently is useful. If we have a certain demand for wood, we have a demand for food, you want to produce that food, you want to produce that wood efficiently. However, that doesn't mean that it's useful to consume more. You also have to try to hold down your consumption of these things. So harvesting, in particular, harvesting more wood for bioenergy is not likely to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, because while it's true that you replace fossil fuels, it comes at the cost of losing a lot of carbon from the forest.
Because you're cutting the forest down to feed the burner to produce the energy.
Exactly.
And that, in your view, isn't the most efficient way possible to generate the energy. What is the alternative?
Well, the alternative, we don't know all the alternatives, but to the extent any alternative involves using land to capture sunlight and to turn that into energy, the answer is some kind of solar technique like PV or concentrated solar heating. And the reason is you generally get about 100 times more usable energy using a solar technique per hectare than you do doing even extremely efficient bioenergy. And so because land is precious, because land has opportunity costs, because we can use good land to produce food, use it to grow forests, to store carbon, and leave it there, we don't want to use that land inefficiently.
So, looking at this from the point of view of an Irish farmer that is farming his land at the moment to produce, say, beef cattle or produce cows for milk or produce crops, it's not necessarily doing the environment any great benefit. If he decides, I will stop producing the beef that I've been producing, I will grow my forests and I will harvest that to produce for wood pellets, for burners, that isn't making a net benefit to the environment.
I would agree with that. If you are producing, I don't believe in if you're going to plant forests, don't use them for bioenergy, use them for wood products, or use them just to store carbon. But the basic rule is we need to be using land well. So if you're producing milk or beef well, you should keep doing that and do it as well as you can. If there is land in Ireland that is not likely to be capable of producing beef or milk well, that kind of land is land you might think of planting a forest on. But not for bioenergy,
and that is the point. Most people that will be planting land in Ireland or indeed anywhere else, I suspect, will be thinking of how they can harvest that in 5 years' time, 10 years, 20 years for a crop that they will use to feed pellet burners or whatever that might be. That is not contributing to the environment. So in terms in that marginal land, if you want to do something that contributes to the environment, the types of energy that we can do that is a net benefit and no or less cost is, think of solar panels. Would you be an advocate of wind power as well, wind turbines?
Yeah, exactly.
So we think of using the marginal land in those areas as opposed to a commercial forestry crop.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. Well, as I said, I think if you're going to do a longer rotation and grow forests to meet wood product demand, that's probably useful. Not for bioenergy, not the short rotation stuff for bioenergy. That's not a good use of the land. Professor
Searchinger, thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
Joined by Luke Ming-Flanagan, MEP for Ireland North, Midlands and West. Look, I suppose what we're debating today is the conflict between the priorities for agriculture production versus environment protection. You've brought in Professor Tim Searchinger from Princeton, the United States. He has basically told us that growing trees for forest, for commercial wood production, for pellet burners, etc., doesn't necessarily have an environmental benefit. We have had a vote recently in the Agriculture Committee, of which you're a member, that would prioritise agriculture production and say it cannot be compromised as we look to meet our climate needs. And yet recently the Environment Committee has taken an opposite view where they want to reduce the credits that we have been granted under the LULUCF proposals. So where is this debate heading? Where are we going to finish up with? Is agriculture going to have to be sacrificed for the environment, or which is going to take priority?
Well, it's clear enough where the debate is heading in general, and in general around the world, regardless of what Mr. Trump might have said on climate change in the last couple of weeks. We are heading towards a situation where a series of governments and the vast majority of the world are engaging in climate change mitigation measures. It is now a question of how we do it and what way we go about it. In the European Union at the moment, we're discussing the possibility that forests will solve all our problems and that they will mitigate against climate change. And what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks is bringing in people from various sectors, including Professor Searchinger, to hear all the angles on it. And having listened to him, I will make a decision. And there's one thing that he said today which is hard to argue with, that we have to find the most efficient method of our using our lands. And we can't be in any ways religious about it. And if it is a scientific fact that you can produce 100 times more energy out of an acre of land by using photovoltaic cells rather than forestry, we need to go down that route.
That's solar energy, isn't it?
Solar energy,
in English,
yeah.
Yep.
And basically, we need to move away from the ideology on it. We've basically got to go with what works. And for Irish agriculture, the way I think it needs to go, and we depend on the beef industry and we get a lot of money into the country on the basis of that. What we need to do is recognise that the world is putting pressure on us to reduce our impact on the climate. But the way I think we need to do it is that the animals that we produce in our country, we should produce the feed in our country. I know that's going to be a challenge, but we need to reorient in that direction so that instead of having the grain produced thousands of miles away, fuel being used to bring it to us, and that increasing our carbon footprint, that we produce that locally. That also produces new opportunities for us locally. And also, in my experience as a councillor, the amount of council water and treated water that's used by farmers, when in fact they could be incentivised to use rainwater catch systems. And I think that's how we reduce our carbon footprint. And I think that's the best way to go with it.
So given, and we'll just stay with the beef industry for a moment, given that producing grain is not something that fits the Irish climate particularly well in many regions, is the solution then to go back to the more traditional Hereford, Angus type breeding of cattle, as has been an expansion lately, because they will finish better off grass, they will utilise grass better and not need as much grain fed as the large continental breeds? Is that the future model for Irish beef, do you think?
Well, I think it potentially is, because we have entered a situation where we ended up breeding cattle that needed the equivalent of jet fuel to keep them going. And that jet fuel is basically soya and proteins that have really complex amino acid bases. We need, if we can't grow that equivalent in our country, and there is an argument that you can grow soya in Ireland, but it doesn't grow particularly well, that we've got to move back to a different model and create a situation, okay, when you go to the mart and you're selling your animal, you mightn't be getting as big a price, but at the end of the day, instead of looking at the big number that you might have got for it, you should actually be looking at what sort of profit you're going to get out of it. So if it means a lower price overall, but it means, I won't say increased profits, because farmers aren't making a profit at the moment, but if it means a profit, I don't think farmers would have a problem with that. And also, we would gain from the point of view of climate change. Now, some people might say it's not happening, it's not real. Fine, they deserve their opinion, and they need to be spoken to, and they need to be brought into the debate. The debate isn't over so long as everyone doesn't agree with you. But ultimately, those people are going to have to recognise that is the way the planet is going. And even if they don't agree with it or don't believe it, we will be left behind and we will be punished unless we do something about it. So whether you agree with it or believe it or not, we are going to have to do something about it, because we don't live in the world on our own and the rest of the world is planning on doing something.
It sounds to me like you are persuaded by the environmental debate, by the environmental case that's been made and been articulated very strongly in Brussels.
I'm persuaded most of all by what will work for Ireland, and at the moment we are headed down a certain road. We can complain about the road we're heading down, we can say we should go down a different road, but ultimately they're going down that road, and what we've got to do is find the best vehicle to travel on that road rather than going in an opposite direction where we're guaranteed to lose. There's no argument there.
Luke Ming Flanagan, thank you very much.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast.
Meanwhile, I spoke with Boris and Ossory native, the Irish ambassador to the Netherlands, Kevin Kelly, about Brexit on my recent trip to Germany. He feels Ireland and the Netherlands have much in common. Ambassador, we've just been at a function here this evening with the county chairman of IFA and their leadership, and you were explaining to them, I suppose, many of the similarities between the Dutch perspective on Brexit and the Irish perspective, and the opportunity for closer cooperation. Could you just expand on that for us, please?
Well, I suppose we often think that because we're a neighbouring country with the UK, that, you know, we're the most affected, and we probably are. I think it's widely recognised we're the most affected country by Brexit. But in fact, the Netherlands considers itself as a neighbour of the UK on the other side of the Channel. And in fact, in terms of its economy, it will be severely impacted. So we're in a lot of discussions with the Dutch. We have a very similar approach. Even before Brexit, we worked very closely together in the EU on a whole range of files, and I think if anything, Brexit has just brought us closer. So there's an awareness that there's a need now to form new alliances and to unite in terms of strategy within the European Union going forward.
the Dutch seem to have an intensely positive attitude to problem solving. We heard the farm leader, the Dutch Farm Union leader here tonight, and he talked about TTIP as an opportunity, whereas we see it as a threat. He talked about Brexit being something that has to be overcome, the new CAP, the challenges that will present, but no negativity and no sense that the future of the sector is threatened in any way, whereas in Ireland we seem to always be almost looking for someone to solve our problem. Is there something in the Dutch mentality that we should be trying to emulate? Or?
Well, I think in fairness, the Dutch are also aware that Brexit poses a huge number of challenges for them, and that's why, as I was saying earlier, I would say in terms of all the European Union countries, from what I've seen, the Netherlands has taken this most seriously in terms of mapping out what the implications are, what the risks are, what the problems will be. So I wouldn't say that they're blind to the risks or blind to the problems, but you're right, they have an attitude about also let's see how we can get over this together, how can we move forward, and I think part of that will be trying to create, like Ireland, a stronger European Union with stronger alliances, and that's why they're talking to countries like Ireland and Denmark and other countries to see how can we make how can we get through this together. And I think that's whether it's a lesson we learn, I think it's an approach that we have going forward. I think it's been aware of the risks, managing those risks, but also trying to identify whatever opportunities there are. And as we said, even in terms of our growing trade between Ireland and the Netherlands, there's huge opportunities to even grow that further. And I think both sides would recognise that.
Thank you very much. Much obliged.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
Beef specialist Kieran Lenihan visited 2 Better Farm programme participants this week. He talked with Nigel O'Kane, who keeps 21 suckler cows near Claregalway in County Galway, and John McSweeney in Lisarda in Cork.
So we're out with Galway Better Farmer Nigel O'Kane today. Nigel, talk us through what you do here: cow numbers, land, finishing systems, selling systems, everything.
Cow numbers is about, at the minute, 22, 23 cows. I buy in suck calves and sell them off at stores around August time, usually around the Galway races just before that. Bulls I've started to finish them this year, and heifers I keep as replacements because I've been AIing. Now this year I've started to use a stock bull because we're putting up a new shed and I can't really bring the cows in and out.
What AI sires would you have been using? You're using Munster and Progressive bulls, are you?
Munster all the time, because the local guy Link Walter is the AI technician. But ZAG has been used, HCA, HKG.
Yep.
There's a
few Fiston calves out there.
Fiston calves, LZF.
And were you before this year? You were selling a weanling, were you, in the back end?
I was, yeah, but I went down with TB last August, so all bull weanlings would have been sold.
Right.
And when I went down with TB, I held on to them, and then I got into this Better Farm programme, so John was kind of saying to finish them, push them on a bit, so that's what I've started to this year.
So we're at 20 cows, 3-4 years time, end of the programme. Numbers, where are you targeting?
Numbers should be 30 cows, that'll be the max, because I don't want to be putting them up in trailers.
You're working off farm as well?
I'm working off farm as a plumber, yeah. So, what can hold back here in the home block will be around 30 cows.
And your calf rearing enterprise, we'll say at the moment, is that what, 20, 25?
Yeah, around 20. I can push that up to 30 without any big labour, and with the new shed going up, I will be able to hold that little bit extra.
Okay, so this year you said you have a Charlie bull running. I say you're tempted to stay with a stock bull, are you? You're free now at the moment.
Yeah. I've been AIing for the last 5-6 years, and it is a hassle putting them in and out, especially when you're working. It's fine if you're around every day. Yeah. There's no real big issue to it, but when you're home, and plus young lads, you'll be training them in the evening, so you're gone.
Yeah.
But it is way handier to have the stock bull, but for quality and in terms of replacements, you won't get the same animal out of the stock bull.
That's good. So going forward, you'll maybe pick your best cows. You'll probably keep the stock bull, will you?
No, he'll be moved on again because I have 5 or 6 more coming.
You have a few pedigrees out.
So he'll be moved on probably another month. he'll be gone. I'll try and sell him off.
So you'll always keep a Charlie stockpile on the farm?
Oh yeah, like for mop up anyway. You know, if you have 9 or 10 cows and you AI them once, or maybe you might see them again the second time.
Yeah.
But I'd let the stockpile with them then after that, just for because my cut-off point is for calving is the 30th of March.
Yeah, calving's very good and tight here. So heifers, you'll AI heifers and then maybe your best 10 cows.
Yeah.
And what with the heifers? What breeds will you look at using?
It'll be Simmental, Limousine or Sailor.
Right,
I haven't used a Sailor yet, but this year they've got Munster of a very good Sailor, so
you're a good thing.
I'm going to try him. Yeah.
Sound, Nigel. We're down on John McSweeney's farm today. He's one of the new representatives in the Better Farm, representing Cork. John, talk us through your farm in terms of numbers, systems and breeds.
We have roughly around 20 suckler cows at the moment and calves at foot out in the field. We have bought in a mixture of Angus and Frisian calves, mixture of bulls and heifers, roughly around 96 at the moment. They're still inside. Some of them are still around milk. They're only a couple of weeks old.
So you're spring calving, John?
We're spring calving, yes.
From?
More or less the 1st of January to more or less to nearly Paddy's Day.
Okay, so you're good and tight?
Good and tight. We're going to tighten it again. This year again we're going to try and get it down to nearly 8 weeks.
Fantastic.
Or thereabouts.
And so you get your calves in after the calving?
Yes,
after your
finish, yes. We're hoping, like, that's where we're going earlier now this year with the calving. Well, we were still calving in January. Is it January? Yeah, to be January and February.
Okay. And what systems, John? Are you selling live? Are you finishing? What are you doing here?
We're finishing all the bulls under 16 months.
Going well for you?
Going well the last number of years. Very good.
So you would have killed bulls recently enough?
Yes, we did.
And what sort of weights were you getting in grades?
Roughly 380, and they were grading around U equals 3, I think.
So lots of Angus stocks. You're getting
all
a bonus
Angus,
on them?
All Angus.
Fantastic.
Bonus as well.
And with the calves, John, what are you doing? Are you going live? Are you killing? Or
we'll probably sell a few in the autumn
for cash flow.
And keep the show on the road. And we'll probably sell a few in the spring next year, and we might finish the best of them.
Very good. Just finished the farm plan, John. What big changes are coming ahead for you on the horizon?
I suppose the health plan is kind of a lot more vaccinations.
Okay, so what are you vaccinating for at the moment?
Very little.
Okay.
Very little, being honest about it. But
and in terms of the farm plan, what did we come up with for you in terms of numbers of cows, numbers of calves coming in? But the farm's not huge here, so you're going to be stocked quite highly regardless.
Yeah, we're going to be stocked very high. We're going to go up to around 30 suckler cows.
Okay.
And buying in then 40 or 50 calves next year. We'll probably be heading for Hereford, Angus.
Yes, what we see down here is quite pure. You have quite a lot of Frisian. So you're going with that Hereford and Angus.
Yes, and maybe a few buy-in replacement heifers in for myself.
Yes.
Dairy herds, kind of Simmentals, the big breeds. Big breeds in for replacements.
Good strategy. So your bull at the moment is kind of a maternal Angus. Will you look to change him and go more?
Yes, he's going, once this breeding season now is finished, we're heading for terminal Angus for next year's breeding.
Okay, and will you look to finish those bought in Hereford and Angus calves, or will you look to sell them live? If you do finish, will it be a bullock, will it be a bull?
I suppose we'll go weight. We'll be weighing them a couple of times through the year, and whichever one is performing the best, bulls.
Yes, under 16 months.
Under 16 months.
Very good.
And we'll steers then the rest of them, and we probably will keep a good few of them for next year to go out and grass again.
Yes.
And at the end of the year, kill them at the end of the year.
Very good.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast.
TJ Carroll from Fire and Rescue Service spoke to Katrina Murphy about the common causes of fires on Irish farms and the steps that farmers can take to address fire hazards.
Katrina Murphy from the Irish Farmers Journal, and I'm joined by Sub-Officer TJ Carroll from Care Fire and Rescue. TJ, can you tell us what are the main reasons that you're called out to farmyards and what are the causes?
Some of the main reasons we get called out are the main one being hay barn fires or fires of that sort, and machinery fires, and then maybe entrapments or gas leaks and gas detections or that, where there's casualties involved. Fires being the main ones. We don't get too much of the methane errors and slurry on farmers' behalf, but it's not something that we like going out to either. But fires are the common one. They're a regular occurrence, and lots happening this time of the year, especially with the heat building up in sheds and that.
And in the case of a fire, farmers might be inclined to say just put it out and limit the damage, but you were saying there that with fires it's most important in some cases to actually let it burn.
Yeah, hay barn fires, they tend to burn from the inside out, and when we put water on them, it's on the outside layer is all it touches, or it doesn't penetrate through. So the best way to deal with that is, if you can at all, pull it all out. Sometimes if you have machinery in the yard, we can assist it, pull out the contents of the shed and leave it burn off outside, and we can dampen that down as it's burning. If we could come in along and just throw in loads of water and go away home, and then you'd go to bed, and the following morning you get up and it would be burning, it would be back to square one again. So it's not the nicest thing to have to do, but it all has to be pulled out and burnt off.
And what advice would you give to farmers in terms of a fire extinguisher on the farm? What kind of fire extinguisher should they have near to hand?
What we find best is the CO2 fire extinguisher, especially now with so many chemicals and different bodies like that around the farm, that you find that water isn't exactly ideal for fire situations, especially when you don't know what you're dealing with. CO2 is the safest one to use, and it doesn't really have any negatives.
And you mentioned there earlier the slurry and methane gases. Advice for farmers who maybe come across someone that they suspect has been affected by gas. What should they do? What should they not do?
Yeah, if you come across someone that has been overcome by gases, do not go near them. Like, it's a hard thing to say, and natural reaction is obviously to run over and pull them out, but we're going to be pulling two people out then, or somebody's going to be pulling two people out, so it's best, and it's not ideal, but leave them and call the emergency services, be it us or the HSE, and we can look after it from there.
And finally, you mentioned the third reason that you might be called out to a farmyard is crush incidents and things like that. You have some equipment there that you showed farmers to deal with that kind of incident. Tell us a little bit more about those.
Yeah, we get a few calls from, say, farmers that might be felling trees or knocking trees, and they become trapped. We have a few different pieces of equipment, like we have our spreaders that we use on road traffic collisions that we can use, or we have airbags. We showed some of the farmers here today. We didn't demonstrate them, but we just showed them how they work, and most of them thought they were excellent. They thought they were very good, varying sizes and strengths for different jobs.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
Katrina also met Garda PSV Inspector Eamon Raleigh about the most common safety issues relating to farm machinery.
Katrina Murphy from the Irish Farmers Journal, and I'm joined by Eamon Raleigh, PSV Inspector with Garda Siochána. Eamon, can you tell us what are the most common issues that you come across in your role as an inspector relating to agricultural machinery?
Hi Katrina, how are we doing? I suppose the problems we're finding there now at the moment is generally in relation to the lighting of the vehicles. I suppose is the most common issue. Beacons not working, or they're not turned on at the time. Parking lights gone, indicators gone, a lot of basic stuff there. Maybe lights on the back of trailers not connected. We might see maybe a tyre that's under the legal limit of 1.6 as well. The secondary coupling as well is coming on a bit, where there's no device there in place, where the parking brake is maybe seized up for maybe lack of use during the year as well. Your slurry spreader would probably be the main common faults we're finding at the moment.
And of those faults, what's the most serious, and what would be the repercussions if you inspected a tractor on the road with any of those issues? What would happen?
Well, I suppose I would always say my kind of three primary serious concerns would be steering, braking and tyres of any vehicle. They're the most common things. So again, that your tyres are in good order, that they're not cut or torn, and especially agricultural vehicles that are coming in, they're going from land to road, and I suppose just to check your tyres to make sure they're correctly inflated and there's no tyres or there's no rips or treads in them, that your brakes are working front and rear on the trailers as well and on the vehicles, and again that your steering components, that they are checked by a competent person, whether it's a mechanic, whether they have someone doing it, that they're checked maybe on an annual basis depending on the use or how many hours has been used on the vehicle.
And finally, if I can just ask you, I suppose in terms of towing capacity, towing weights, are farmers aware of what they can tow, what they should tow, in your experience of people that you've come across?
Yeah, I think they are. I think these regulations have been in since the 1st of January 16, and as you can see this evening, it's a great turnout here, and I suppose it's credit where credit's due to the farmers, that they do have an interest in it and they are making themselves aware of their towing capacities of it. And if they don't know, they might be going back to the manufacturer or where the trailer was bought, or that, to find out, can they get maybe a new plate on the vehicle, or what exactly is it. But it is a definite common question tonight that we're seeing, and we're trying to assist them as the night goes on.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
In this week's Irish Country Living, editor Mairead Lavery discusses the All-Ireland Farmers Market, which was held in Enniscorthy as part of the Strawberry Fair at the weekend, as well as the launch of the Tullamore Show.
Hi, my name is Ciara Leahy, consumer editor in Irish Country Living, and I am here with our editor Mairead Lavery. Now, it is summertime, which means there are lots of food and farming events taking place across the country. Of course, last weekend we had Bloom, and also the All-Ireland Farmers Market was taking place in Enniscorthy. Mairead, tell me a little about this market that you were at.
Hi there, Ciara. Yeah, I was down in Enniscorthy and we had a great day. The weather is the one thing that can really affect so many summer events with everything outdoors, but thankfully the rain held off and there was loads going on in Enniscorthy. It's Strawberry Week and the strawberries were absolutely everywhere and they were gorgeous. It was the All-Ireland Farmers Market, and I think it's the 11th year. IFA run the competition in conjunction with the County Council and tourist officials and, other groups in County Wexford. And, they really put their efforts in. Now, they changed their date this year, which did impact on the number of stands pretty substantially because it coincided with Bloom. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the artisan food people were above in Bloom for the 5 days. So it did have an impact. But saying that, I don't know how they judged it last year, because we had the guts of 20 stands to judge and it took us 4 hours. It was a really long time.
Okay, so set the scene for me and tell me about the standards of stalls that were there.
Yeah, well, there was a lot. It varied. There was a lot of ready food stands. Mm-hmm. Quite a lot of foreign non-nationals actually working those stands. Very much into provenance of the food and where they were getting their meat and could tell us everything. Then there were a number of other kind of, delicatessen type stands where there was a lot of pestos and, foraged food and home baking, that kind of thing. And then there was what really those farmer markets were set up to do, which was to kind of serve the farmer, give the value added and cut out the retailer. So fruit and veg and those kind of stands were also part of the package.
How did you think the standard was?
I thought the standard was very good, and now there was a gap between those at the top and a middle group and then the rest. Mm-hmm. And certainly if you wanted to see good stands in operation, it was the place to go. Last year's winner, Caroline Rigney from Curra Chase, the free range pork, she was there again. She'd won it, but I mean her stand is excellent, the amount of information that she has. But for a finish, we went with Eleanor Leahy from Nibbles Food Emporium in Mill Street as the winner. Really lovely stand, beautiful jams, beautiful forage foods, pickled cucumbers, gluten-free bakery plus ordinary conventional bakery, but a beautifully set up stall. It made you want to buy. And Eleanor's activeness, or she was so enthusiastic and so welcoming to the stand, it was impossible to walk away without spending money. I had got a jar of her pickled cucumbers, and I love pickled cucumbers, and they were just delicious. And she had elderflower and gooseberry and champagne jam.
Oh, nice!
Now, I know it was a really nice combination. So she won. And
who else stood out from the crowd?
Well, who else stood out from the crowd from us was a young man, and I mean, it would be unfair actually to call him a young man. He was a youngster, 12-year-old. Alex Fortune, and he was there manning the family's fruit and veg stall, and himself and his older cousin, who was only 14, had set it up. They must have been there since 7 o'clock. But we asked him about the scallions. He could tell us exactly where they were grown, where on the farm, the potatoes, where they'd grown from. He told us exactly how they washed the beetroot and the carrots and everything in preparation for the market. He did it all with a huge smile on his face. He was mindful of his customers. He was absolutely brilliant young man. So they took home the third prize. Fantastic. And I think it really, it was a local winner. It was a very popular winner, and he deserved every bit of it.
The future of that farm's in safe hands anyway.
Well, yeah, and it's the kind of thing, half the 12-year-olds in the country were rolling over for their beauty sleep at that stage. And he was out there, packing a stand and getting it. There was a lot of work the night before,
Absolutely,
went into it the night before to get everything ready.
They're long days.
Yeah, and they did, and their aunt was with them, but the two lads were up to their neck in doing the work. So they came third, and then in between Le Skinny Chef. Now, Le Skinny Chef is anything but skinny. Well, now, the chef himself, whose name is Aymar Gourdet from France, he's fine and skinny, but what he was selling wouldn't make you skinny. He was big into pestos, and they were gorgeous. And nettle soup. Now, I didn't try the soup.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't. No, but I mean, it was selling very well for him. But it was all that delicatessen produce, and he had a very cute thing on his counter. He had tiles, and there was built in exactly what, he didn't have to draw it or write it every single day. You knew exactly what was, in front of you and what you were tasting. So he was very, very good at promoting his product and getting the sales. And I mean, if he got you talking, you weren't going to leave the stand unless you'd bought stuff. So it was the stand, the how it looked. Mm-hmm. It was the range of products they had. It was also their knowledge about the products and the provenance and everything to do with that, and their engagement with the consumer, with the purchaser in front of them and the public. And they're the three that were awarded the prizes.
Excellent. Sounds like a great weekend.
Yeah, well, congratulations now to Pat Roach and all the crew, Jimmy, all the rest of them down there for the support they were on the day. And, the radio station gave us good coverage as well. So, look, it was good.
Excellent. Tell me a little more about what else you were in Tullamore for the launch of the Tullamore show.
Yeah, I went down to that on Wednesday night. I was a guest speaker there, and there was about, I suppose, 250 to 300 people at it, which just shows you how many sponsors there are. 175,000 worth of prize money.
Wow.
And it's so important. Like there's 600 volunteers with Tullamore Show. To get that kind of prize fund gathered means that they're getting loads of entries. So there's 1,000 classes that you can enter in. So, it's massive. And I'd just like to congratulate Brenda Kiernan. She's the first woman chair of, the Tullamore Show Committee. Yeah. She managed the bakery section for years, and she's handed that over now to two colleagues. But she's in charge for the next 4 years. So, I mean, she is going to give her life to it, and no better woman. And between herself now and Frida Kinarney, I'm looking forward to great things coming out of Tullamore.
Excellent. And of course, Tullamore Show will be taking place across the summer. And the last thing, Mairead, you're off to Laois.
I am this Sunday. Would you believe it? I believe there's ads going out in the local radio station. I hope people aren't expecting too much. I'm telling my story of being a gardener. So
well, you love telling that story.
Yeah, well, it's the Laois Garden Festival, and it's happening in Spinks on Sunday. And anyway, I'm looking forward to being there.
Excellent, Mairead. Thank you very much. And that's what you'll find in Mairead's editorial in this week's Irish Country Living.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie and on iTunes every Thursday.